When Emily Hayes and her new classmate Alex Turner walked through the doors of Westbrook High, they had no idea the masks hiding their teachers' faces would soon expose a secret so dark it would shake their quiet town to its core. At first glance, Westbrook High seemed like any other school tucked into the quiet streets of a suburban town. Its red brick buildings, neatly trimmed lawns, and familiar bell schedule gave the impression of safety and routine. Students moved through the halls carrying backpacks and lunch trays, laughing with friends and preparing for the usual tests and assignments that marked the rhythm of school life. Teachers greeted students warmly at their classroom doors, offering guidance and encouragement, and the community around the school thrived on the illusion of normalcy. Parents felt secure leaving their children in the care of educators who had long been respected as responsible and trustworthy. The town prided itself on its low crime rate and tight-knit community spirit, creating an atmosphere that suggested nothing could go wrong behind the walls of Westbrook High. Yet beneath the surface, there were small signs that all was not entirely as it seemed. Rumors floated quietly among students, often dismissed as gossip or exaggeration. Some spoke of late-night parties where strange masks were worn and peculiar games were played. Others hinted at teachers attending these gatherings in ways that seemed unusual or inappropriate. No one had proof, and the stories were easily ignored, written off as the fanciful imagination of teenagers trying to create excitement in their otherwise predictable lives. Social media posts occasionally surfaced with blurry images and cryptic captions, but they were fleeting and often laughed off by those who preferred to see the school as a safe haven. The sense of unease was subtle, barely perceptible to adults, yet it lingered like a shadow in the background. The arrival of a new student would soon become the catalyst that pulled the quiet unease into the open. This student transferred mid-year, their presence immediately noticeable not because of anything they said or did, but because they carried a different energy, observant, quiet, and wary. It didn't take long for whispers to begin circulating online as classmates speculated about the newcomer's past and motivations. Some sensed that this student was aware of things others were not, a perception that only grew when they quietly began asking questions about certain events and gatherings that had previously gone unnoticed. Their presence coincided with a surge of social media activity, and suddenly the rumors that had once been dismissed as harmless gossip gained a sharper edge. People started to pay attention, though few were ready to confront what might lie beneath the surface. Even as daily life at Westbrook High continued, attention began to build. Teachers moved through the halls with the same outward calm, but students could feel something shifting beneath the surface. Text messages were exchanged in hushed tones, parents noticed odd patterns in behavior, and a general sense of unease began to seep into the community. The quiet town that had once seemed so safe was on the brink of being exposed to a reality it had never imagined. A single, seemingly ordinary day could no longer be taken at face value. Everything was about to change, and the calm, familiar rhythm of Westbrook High was only the beginning of a story that would soon shock everyone who thought they knew the truth. The first hints that something was amiss began appearing in ways that seemed almost innocent at first. It started with images circulating online, posted anonymously on social media accounts that no one could trace. The photos were unclear, slightly blurred, as if deliberately taken to obscure faces, but they were unmistakably taken at gatherings that extended late into the night. In some of the images, people wore masks that covered their entire faces, eerily reminiscent of horror movies. At first, students laughed them off, calling them themed parties or harmless pranks, but the more they appeared, the more unsettling they became. The masks, strange and uniform, seemed to serve a purpose beyond costume. They hinted at secrecy, concealment, and a world that existed behind closed doors. As the pictures multiplied, so did the whispers in the hallways. Some students mentioned unusual invitations they had received to private gatherings. Others spoke of being pressured to attend, feeling a strange mix of fear and curiosity. Teachers who had once been trusted and respected began to attract quiet suspicion. Parents noticed subtle changes in their children's nervous glances when asked about their evenings, vague excuses for late-night activity, and social media posts that seemed coded, hinting at experiences they could not or would not explain. There was a sense that something was happening beneath the surface, something that didn't belong in a school, yet it remained shrouded in mystery. The new student who had arrived months earlier became a focal point in this growing unease. They observed the situation closely, noticing patterns that others overlooked. Certain teachers seemed unusually interested in who attended the gatherings, while others were oddly absent from school events. The student began to piece together a picture that was both confusing and alarming. They noticed the alignment between masked parties, cryptic social media activity, and unexplained absences among students. What had once seemed like disconnected rumors now hinted at a carefully orchestrated sequence of events. The more the student watched, the more the town's image of normalcy began to crack. At the same time, the tension between curiosity and fear among students reached a tipping point. Some wanted to uncover the truth, to understand what was happening behind the closed doors of Westbrook High, while others preferred to stay silent, afraid of the consequences. Hushed conversations in hallways, secret messages sent between friends, and careful monitoring of social media created a network of awareness that was both fragile and fragilely united. The atmosphere of the school began to shift from routine to anxious, a subtle but persistent energy that suggested everyone was holding their breath, waiting for something to be revealed. Even parents who had never questioned the safety of the school started to sense that something was off. A friend mentioned seeing unfamiliar faces in the neighborhood late at night. Another parent found suspicious posts on a child's social media account. Even without concrete evidence, the accumulation of small, odd details created an invisible web of suspicion. Westbrook High, a place that had long seemed predictable and secure, was becoming a stage for events that no one could yet fully understand. The first clues were subtle, but they carried a weight that promised far-reaching consequences, and the quiet town was only beginning to realize the darkness lurking beneath its familiar streets. The turning point came when the new student finally revealed what they had witnessed, a revelation that shocked the entire community. Their account described events far more disturbing than anyone had dared imagine. The gatherings, once dismissed as harmless themed parties, were said to be organized by certain staff members who used the cover of social events to conceal troubling behavior. According to the student, the masked meetings were carefully planned, with an attention to secrecy that suggested forethought and intent. What had seemed like chaotic teenage pranks now appeared as deliberate and calculated acts. The masks, far from being mere costumes, served as a method of anonymity, allowing participants to engage in behavior that crossed boundaries and violated trust. The new student described a chilling hierarchy within these gatherings. Teachers who had been admired for their dedication and kindness were allegedly at the center, directing the activities and ensuring silence among those present. Students were not merely observers, some were coerced into participating in ways that created fear and compliance. The atmosphere, once thought to be one of innocent fun, was described as tense and suffocating, dominated by an unspoken code that discouraged questioning and punished disobedience. Each detail in the student's account added weight to what had previously been speculation, transforming rumor into a narrative that demanded attention. As the students' claims became known, disbelief swept through the town. Parents struggled to reconcile the image of their children as trusted educators with the disturbing allegations now brought to light. Teachers who had once been pillars of the community were suddenly viewed through a lens of suspicion. The town grappled with the tension between the comforting familiarity of what they thought they knew and the unsettling possibility that this safety had been an illusion all along. The revelation ignited a mixture of fear, anger, and confusion, leaving the community uncertain of whom to trust. Authorities were called in, initially cautious and measured, attempting to balance the need for investigation with the delicate nature of allegations that involved minors and respected professionals. The students' testimony, though vivid and detailed, required corroboration. Investigators began tracing digital footprints, reviewing social media posts, and discreetly speaking to students and staff, piecing together a puzzle that had been deliberately hidden. Even as the evidence began to accumulate, the process was slow, frustrating, and tense. The sense of normalcy that had characterized Westbrook High for decades was collapsing under the weight of disturbing new truths. The ripple effects of the revelation spread beyond the school. Conversations that had once been casual whispers escalated into serious discussions among neighbors, families, and community leaders. Questions about oversight, accountability, and the hidden dynamics within the school became unavoidable. The new student, whose courage had exposed the dark undercurrent of Westbrook High, became a symbol of both the danger of silence and the necessity of speaking out. Their account transformed the quiet town into a place of scrutiny and investigation, a community forced to confront a reality that challenged its sense of safety, trust, and identity. The mask of normalcy that had long hidden troubling behavior was removed, and the consequences of what was revealed would be felt for years to come. The investigation that followed was long, meticulous, and tense, stretching over months as authorities sought to uncover the truth behind the shocking claims. Every lead was examined carefully, every piece of evidence scrutinized, and every statement cross-checked for accuracy. The complexity of the situation became clear quickly. Students had been hesitant to speak openly, fearful of retaliation or disbelief, and teachers who had been implicated held positions of authority that complicated the process. Investigators knew they were dealing with a delicate balance, protecting those at risk while gathering enough proof to hold anyone accountable. Digital evidence became a crucial part of the inquiry. Social media accounts, messages, and emails were combed for anything that could confirm the new student's statements. It didn't take long for investigators to discover a private chat group where teachers and older students had exchanged messages about the gatherings. The discussions, once hidden behind encryption and anonymity, revealed a network of communication that showed planning, coordination, and a clear effort to maintain secrecy. The masks, which had initially seemed like a harmless party theme, now appeared to serve as tools for concealment, allowing participants to engage in acts they would never risk being identified for publicly. Each new piece of evidence built a picture that was increasingly impossible to ignore. Physical evidence also surfaced. Security footage from nearby businesses and street cameras showed groups of people arriving at and leaving locations late at night, often carrying bags and wearing masks. Investigators mapped these locations and times, noticing patterns that matched the student's account. Witnesses who had initially been reluctant to speak began to come forward, providing details that corroborated the stories. Some recalled conversations or observations that had seemed trivial at the time but now fit into a disturbing mosaic of events. The growing body of evidence revealed that what had been dismissed as occasional teenage mischief was, in reality, part of a carefully orchestrated system that exploited trust and authority. The investigation uncovered the psychological impact on students who had attended or been coerced into attending the gatherings. Many exhibited signs of stress, fear, and confusion, unsure how to process what they had witnessed or experienced. The weight of secrecy had been heavy, and the fear of speaking out had silenced them for months. Counselors were brought in to provide support, helping students navigate the emotional aftermath while investigators worked to ensure the perpetrators were identified. It became clear that the scope of the issue extended beyond individual events, affecting the mental health and well-being of an entire student body. As the pieces fell into place, the town began to grasp the full extent of the betrayal. The investigation revealed that the gatherings were neither random nor isolated. They represented a systemic abuse of power, facilitated by trust that had been exploited for personal gain. The discovery of this network sent shockwaves through the community, forcing parents, students, and faculty to reconsider everything they had believed about the school. The quiet town that had once seemed so safe was now confronting a reality that was both horrifying and undeniable. The masks, the secrecy, and the hidden communications had all been exposed, leaving Westbrook High and the town around it in a state of uneasy reckoning that would take years to process. When the story finally reached the public, the impact was immediate and intense. Local news outlets reported on the allegations with a mix of shock and disbelief, while national media soon followed, amplifying the sense of scandal that had gripped the town. Westbrook, once known for its quiet streets and safe schools, became a focal point for conversations about trust, authority, and the hidden dangers that can lurk in seemingly ordinary communities. The revelations forced parents, students, and staff to confront a truth they had long avoided, that the very people entrusted with protection and guidance could be responsible for harm. Several teachers were suspended pending further investigation, their reputations and careers hanging in the balance. Community meetings were called, and parents demanded answers, accountability, and transparency from school administrators. Students, many of whom had been too afraid to speak out initially, began to share their experiences, some corroborating the new students' original claims. The town struggled to process the scope of the scandal. Conversations that had once centered around sports events and academic achievements shifted to questions of safety, oversight, and how such behavior could have gone unnoticed for so long. The shock was compounded by the realization that appearances had been deceptive. The normalcy the town had relied upon was nothing more than a fragile facade. Mental health resources became a priority as counselors worked with students affected by the events. The emotional toll was clear. Anxiety, fear, and a sense of betrayal lingered, creating a ripple effect that touched families and friendships alike. Even those who had not directly witnessed the gatherings felt the strain, grappling with the uncertainty of whom to trust and the unsettling notion that safety could not be taken for granted. The town was in a state of collective reckoning, trying to balance grief, anger, and the need for resolution. Legal proceedings began to unfold as investigators compiled evidence, testimonies, and digital records. The masked gatherings, once a vague rumor, had become a documented network of manipulation and secrecy. The trial process was slow and intense, revealing the complexities of proving wrongdoing in a case that involved both adults in positions of authority and minors who had been coerced or silenced. Public interest remained high, and the community closely followed each development, grappling with the reality of systemic betrayal. The process brought both frustration and relief as accountability slowly began to take shape. Amid the turmoil, the new student emerged as a quiet figure of courage. Their willingness to speak out had ignited the investigation and brought hidden truths to light, transforming fear into action. While the masks and secrecy were gone, their image lingered in the town's collective memory, a haunting reminder of the cost of silence and the fragility of trust. Westbrook High would never return to the sense of innocence it once had, and the community learned an enduring lesson about vigilance, accountability, and the shadows that can exist even in the most ordinary places. The scandal reshaped the town forever, leaving a mark that would influence how parents, students, and educators approached safety, transparency, and the limits of trust for years to come.